Welcome, everyone, to Easy History Podcast. Today, we're going to be stepping back in time to the first Industrial Revolution.
All right.
It's more than just dusty history, though. It's like the blueprint for the world we live in.
Absolutely. Between 1750 and 1850, life shifted drastically.
Yeah.
Imagine going from quiet fields and handcrafted goods to the constant hum of factories and cities sprawling across the landscape.
So before we jump into steam engines and factories, set the scene for us.
All right.
What was daily life really like before all this upheaval?
Think small workshops,
Okay.
goods made by hand, and the rhythm of the seasons dictating your day. It was what was called the domestic system of production.
Okay.
But what's fascinating is that the seeds of this Industrial Revolution were actually sown in the fields through an agricultural revolution.
Really?
That's often overlooked.
An agricultural revolution?
Yeah.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's like a domino effect. Think crop rotation, better plows and farmers selectively breeding livestock, all leading to more food, a population boom.
Okay.
And suddenly, extra hands not needed on farms.
I see.
And at the same time, you have enclosures happening.
Enclosures?
Yeah. Imagine public parks being fenced off and sold to private companies.
Wow.
That's the scale of change we're talking about.
Okay.
People were driven from the countryside, seeking work in cities that were rapidly expanding.
So it wasn't just about growing more food.
No.
It was setting the stage for a whole new way of life.
Exactly. You have this growing workforce and a need to produce goods for a rapidly growing, increasingly urban population. Enter the machines.
All right.
Especially in the textile industry, which was the first to really embrace these changes.
Right. Everyone needs clothes.
Yeah.
It seems like a natural place to start.
Absolutely.
Walk us through some of those early inventions that revolutionized the textile industry.
It's a story of innovation building on innovation.
Okay.
It starts with the spinning jenny in 1764,
Okay.
which allowed one person to spin multiple threads at once.
Wow.
But then things really take off with the water frame.
The water frame.
Yeah, which uses water power to drive larger, even more efficient spinning machines. This was a major step towards factory production as we know it.
It's amazing how each inventor seems to have taken the previous idea and run with it.
Yeah.
That human drive to improve and refine is really incredible.
And the textile revolution didn't stop there. The mule jenny combined elements of the spinning jenny and the water frame to produce even stronger, finer yarn. Then the power loom comes along and automates weaving. Suddenly, textiles are being made at an unheard of speed and volume.
Wow.
And at a lower cost. So now more people can afford clothing. Demand skyrockets. And the textile industry explodes.
Okay, so textiles are booming, cities are growing. How do you power all these new machines?
That's a great question.
That's where James Watt and the steam engine enter the picture, right?
You got it.
Okay.
While earlier steam engines existed, Watt's improvements in 1776 were groundbreaking.
Okay.
Suddenly, power wasn't limited by muscle or the weather. A whole new range of possibilities opened up.
Wow.
It's hard to overstate the impact of this invention.
It must have felt like magic.
It really did.
What kind of impact did this new, readily available power source have on industries beyond textiles?
Think about mining.
Okay.
Suddenly, miners could dig deeper and pump water out of mines more efficiently.
Wow.
And of course, it revolutionized transportation.
Yeah.
With the advent of steam locomotives and ships.
Right.
It's like the world went from walking speed to running speed practically overnight.
Okay, we've got steam power driving all this progress.
Yeah.
But what about the machines themselves?
Okay.
Did the iron industry keep up with this demand for more and stronger materials?
Absolutely. The iron industry was going through its own revolution. Coke, which is basically purified coal, became the go-to fuel, making iron production cheaper and more efficient.
I see.
Then you have Henry Quartz's puddling technique in 1784.
Puddling?
Yeah, this process created higher quality iron.
Okay.
Think of it like going from cast iron cookware to the durable wrought iron fences you see today.
It's amazing how all these innovations are linked together.
It really is.
Each one pushing the others forward.
Yeah.
The textile industry wouldn't have been possible without stronger iron from puddling.
Right.
Which itself rely on coke, a product of the coal industry, rapidly expanding thanks to steam power.
Yeah.
You can really see how this created a chain reaction of progress.
A domino effect.
But these changes weren't just about technology, were they?
No, they weren't.
It seems like the whole economic system was being reshaped.
That's right. You see this massive shift from a trade and agriculture-based economy to a capitalist industrial system.
All right.
Concepts we take for granted today, like mass production.
Reduce costs.
And global markets were all born out of this period.
It's incredible to think about the lasting impact of these changes.
Yeah.
But we can't talk about the Industrial Revolution without addressing the human cost, right?
Absolutely. We have to remember that progress isn't always evenly distributed.
Right.
And
Okay, so we left off talking about the human cost of all this progress. What was it like for people whose lives were being so drastically transformed during the first Industrial Revolution?
It was a time of upheaval, that's for certain. Remember how we talked about people being pushed off the land by enclosures?
Yeah.
Well, they flooded into these rapidly growing cities, often entire families, hoping to find work in the factories.
So we're talking about a massive migration from rural areas to urban centers.
Exactly.
It must have been a jarring change of pace, to say the least.
Oh, it was, and these cities weren't prepared for such rapid growth.
Right.
Housing was often overcrowded and unsanitary. You have to imagine families crammed into small, poorly ventilated apartments, often with multiple families sharing a single toilet.
It sounds like conditions were ripe for the spread of disease.
Exactly. Outbreaks of diseases like cholera and typhus were common.
Wow.
And infant mortality rates were incredibly high.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder that the benefits of industrial progress weren't shared equally by everyone.
Absolutely.
So on the one hand, you have this incredible technological innovation.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you have people struggling just to survive in these new industrial cities.
It's a complex picture. Yeah. While there was hardship and suffering, cities also offered opportunities that weren't available in rural areas.
Oh, okay.
There were new jobs, new forms of entertainment, and a sense of possibility that drew people in. It was a time of great social mobility where someone could potentially rise above their station in a way that wasn't possible before.
So it was a mixed bag, a combination of progress and its unintended consequences.
Yes.
And with all these people moving to cities, working in factories, it seems like the social fabric of society was being reshaped as well.
Absolutely. The Industrial Revolution led to the emergence of new social classes. You have the industrial bourgeoisie, the factory owners and entrepreneurs who accumulated wealth and power. They were the new elite, the driving force behind industrial capitalism.
And on the other side, you had the working class.
Right.
The people who toiled in the factories, operating the machines that produced the goods that fueled this new economy.
Precisely. The working class faced long hours, low wages, and dangerous working conditions.
It doesn't sound good.
No, it wasn't. There was no minimum wage, no safety regulations, and no workers' compensation if you were injured on the job.
It sounds like a recipe for unrest and discontent.
It certainly was. Working conditions in factories and mines were often horrific. We're talking about 12, 16-hour workdays, 6 days a week, in often dangerous and unhealthy environments.
We can't forget the impact on children either.
Right.
Child labor was rampant during this time, wasn't it?
Sadly, it was children as young as 5 or 6 were sent to work in factories and mines.
Oh, wow.
Their small size made them useful for tasks like crawling under machinery or squeezing into tight spaces in mines.
It's hard to fathom that such conditions were ever tolerated.
It's a reminder that the values and norms of the past were very different from our own.
Right.
Child labor was seen as a necessity, a way for poor families to make ends meet.
So how did people respond to these harsh conditions? Did they simply accept their lot in life, or was there pushback?
There was definitely pushback. The first Industrial Revolution was also a time of social activism and reform. As workers became more aware of their shared experiences, they began to organize, forming labor unions and advocating for better working conditions.
So amidst the hardship and exploitation, there were also seeds of resistance and the fight for workers' rights being sown.
That's right. The early labor movement faced considerable opposition, but it laid the groundwork for the labor rights we enjoy today. It was a long and arduous struggle, but it demonstrates the power of collective action and the importance of standing up for what's right.
So as we've seen, the first Industrial Revolution wasn't just about technological advancements.
No.
It brought about profound social and economic changes, creating new classes, new challenges, and new forms of resistance.
Exactly. It was a period of transformation where the old ways of life were being challenged and reshaped by the forces of industrialization.
Right.
It's a reminder that progress is never a simple or straightforward process. It's a complex tapestry of both positive and negative consequences, and it's important to examine all sides of the story.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground so far. We've talked about the technological innovations, the economic shifts, the social upheaval, and the rise of the labor movement. But what about the environmental impact of all this industrial activity? We all know that burning coal for energy comes with a price. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of new inventions and expanding industries, but we can't ignore the environmental impact of the first Industrial Revolution.
No, absolutely not.
What were some of the consequences of this rapid industrialization?
Well, it's a crucial point.
Yeah.
while coal fueled the engines of industry,
Right.
it also cast a shadow over the environment. Think about the smoky skies above industrial cities,
Yeah.
the polluted rivers,
Oh, wow.
and the deforestation as people cleared land for factories, mines, and resources.
It's like a trade-off.
Yeah,
Progress in one area often comes at the expense of something else.
absolutely.
Did people at the time understand the long-term implications of these environmental changes?
Awareness was growing,
Okay.
but the focus was primarily on production and economic growth.
Hmm.
The environment was often viewed as an endless resource to be exploited.
Right.
It's a mindset that unfortunately continued for generations.
Yeah, that short-sightedness is something we're still dealing with today.
Absolutely.
But even with these environmental challenges,
Yeah.
there's no denying that the first Industrial Revolution had a profound impact on the world stage.
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just a local phenomenon.
Right.
It reshaped global power dynamics.
Oh, yeah.
European nations, particularly Great Britain, became powerhouses of industry and technology.
Yeah.
This newfound strength translated into economic and military dominance.
So you have this shift in global power.
Right.
How did that play out in terms of relationships between nations?
Well, European empires expanded rapidly,
Sure.
driven by a need for raw materials to feed their factories,
Right.
and new markets for their manufactured goods. This fueled a new wave of colonialism,
Oh, wow.
with European powers exerting control over vast territories in Africa, Asia, and the Americas.
So colonialism wasn't just about political dominance.
No.
It was directly tied to the needs of industrial capitalism.
Yeah.
The quest for resources and markets helped shape the map of the world as we know it.
That's right. It's a complex and often dark chapter of history. The Industrial Revolution created this insatiable demand for resources and markets. And sadly, it was met through exploitation and oppression on a global scale.
It's a sobering reminder that progress often comes at a cost.
Yes.
And those costs aren't always evenly distributed.
Right.
But while Europe was at the forefront of this industrial wave,
Yeah.
how did other parts of the world respond to these changes?
The impact varied widely.
Okay.
Some nations, like Japan, embraced modernization and underwent their own rapid industrialization.
I see.
Others struggled to adapt,
Right.
leading to growing disparities in wealth and power on a global scale. It's like the world split into those who could keep up with the breakneck speed of industrial progress
Yeah.
and those who were left behind.
It's like a chain reaction.
Exactly.
One nation industrializes and the effects ripple outward, impacting trade relationships and the balance of power.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think how these changes that began in Britain had such far-reaching consequences.
And it wasn't just about economics and politics.
Really?
The first Industrial Revolution also sparked a global exchange of ideas, technologies, and ways of life. Think about innovations like railroads, steamships, and the telegraph.
Right.
They shrank distances, connected people in unprecedented ways, and facilitated the flow of information and goods across continents.
It's almost like the world was getting smaller,
Yeah.
more interconnected.
Exactly. And this interconnectedness laid the groundwork for the globalization we see today.
Wow.
The first Industrial Revolution may have begun in Britain, but its legacy is truly global.
Wow, we've covered an incredible amount of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From spinning jennies and steam engines to global power shifts and the seeds of globalization. It's amazing to see how the first Industrial Revolution shaped the world we live in today.
It's a period that continues to fascinate and challenge us.
Right.
The Industrial Revolution offers both cautionary tales and inspiring examples of human ingenuity and resilience.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that progress is a complex and multifaceted process, one that requires careful consideration of its social, economic, and environmental implications.
Absolutely. As we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
All right.
We've seen how the first Industrial Revolution transformed society in profound ways.
Yeah.
But what about the revolutions happening around us today? How are technologies like artificial intelligence automation and biotechnology reshaping our world?
That's a great question.
What lessons can we draw from the past to help us navigate these new frontiers?
It's a great point. History doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. By understanding the triumphs and challenges of the first Industrial Revolution,
Right.
we can gain valuable insights into how to manage the technological and social changes happening around us today.
Yeah.
The past can offer a roadmap, not a blueprint,
Okay.
as we navigate the uncharted waters of the future.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the first Industrial
It
Revolution.
was my pleasure.
We hope you've enjoyed the deep dive.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning from the rich tapestry of history.